Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Cavanaugh's Corner. Today on the show, I'm rocking kind of a different look. I had the beard for quite a few months now, and it's kind of getting gross, so I shaved it down to the mustache. The mustache is a new thing. I'm trying something out. I'm sorry if it looks a little creepy, but it's something new I wanted to try out and kind of honor Burt Reynolds, who passed away recently. Of course, I can't carry a mustache as cool as he did, but again, it's kind of one of those things I've been wanting to do for a while, and I figured it was the perfect time for that. So anyway, that's not really what I made this video about. Today I'm going to be talking about this new 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray of The Punisher with Thomas Jane and John Travolta. And I think this is from 2004. This is, one of the first kind of like Marvel movies, really, besides Spider-Man and Blade a few years earlier. And really, this is, I actually enjoy this movie. This is a pretty solid movie. It's an origin story of the Punisher, so it's kind of an interesting take on the character. And even though it's a little different from the actual origin story of the character, I think this is a pretty solid action film. And it's really a movie I've always had a soft spot for. So really, I'm going to be talking about the new 4K Blu-ray disc that's in this. And just going to let you know my thoughts and everything on it. So, The Punisher here originally came out on Blu-ray quite a few years ago, and the Blu-ray was kind of, it was alright. It wasn't the greatest Blu-ray in the world. At the time, it was pretty solid, but it didn't age well. This new 4K transfer is a pretty solid transfer. The film does look way better than the regular Blu-ray. The detail and just the quality of the picture is overall a whole lot better than the regular Blu-ray. The picture itself is pretty grainy, however. I was actually surprised how grainy it was for a 2004 film, but there is a lot of grain in the picture, and if you don't like grain, you're really not going to like this release. I like it. It really gives it a filmic look, and I think the definition that would have been lost of the picture if they had DNR'd it would have been extraordinary in this film. So I'm glad that they didn't DNR it at all. There are a few shots in the film that did not look that great. I don't know if it was a camera effect or something that they were doing at the time, but there are 3 or 4 shots in the film that I thought looked really crappy, and I was very surprised about that, because the rest of the movie, like 90% of the movie, looks really, really solid, but for some reason, this film here just has an extremely grainy look to it. They did do a lot of the action stuff in this movie practically, which I really liked. There's not a lot of CGI to be found, and the practical action is something that I think a lot of movies are missing these days. The more recent Mission Impossible films with Tom Cruise have tried to bring that back, which I really, really am glad about, because I'm not a fan of constant CGI all the time. I think that really takes you out of the movie, and this here really doesn't have a lot of that. It's all real in-camera effects, and I really like that. I think it adds a lot to, especially to an action film, and I think this movie really works on a lot of levels. The HDR in it, this actually has Dolby Vision on it, and the Dolby Vision is really not that great on this disc. I think that's the one thing about this disc that I really didn't like, is the Dolby Vision. I could barely tell this thing even had HDR on it. The color palette is slightly better in most scenes, especially a lot of the dark scenes. The black levels on this disc are really, really good and way better than the earlier Blu-ray. The movie does have a darker tone to it throughout on this 4K disc, but it works for me. I think that movie really benefits from this, and I think the Dolby Vision really only enhances the picture a little bit. It doesn't drastically change the color palette, but I do like the fact that the Dolby Vision helps out in certain scenes, especially with the dark levels. The black levels on this 4K disc are really, really, really great. And overall, I think it's a solid disc, but the number one upgrade for the 4K disc, besides the picture clarity and the detail level, I would say, is the sound. Now, this one does have a brand new Dolby Atmos mix, and the Dolby Atmos mix is outstanding on this. It's not extremely atmospheric. The overheads are used a good amount on this, especially in the gunfights and stuff like that. I think they're used a lot more with that. But I do have to say, this one does sound way better than the old Blu-ray. The sound mix is way more clearer. It's definitely louder. It's a way louder mix. The bass levels on this are really solid, and the explosions and gunshots and stuff that happen in this are really mixed extremely well. And I think, honestly, the number one reason to upgrade your disc from the regular Blu-ray to the 4K is for that Dolby Atmos mix. It is really well done. As I mentioned earlier, the picture quality is pretty good. It did carry over all the special features as well. I think that's a nice touch. I'm glad that they did that. And all the special features are on the regular 4K disc as well as the Blu-ray. So you get all the special features on both discs. And I think that's a really great thing that they did. A lot of Blu-rays now, a lot of 4K Blu-rays, I should say, omit all special features from the 4K disc. Lionsgate, for some reason, doesn't do that. And I'm really glad that they don't. It really lets you enjoy the disc a lot more, where you can just put one disc in, do everything you got to do on that one disc, and be done with it. I really appreciate that. And the movie quality doesn't really seem to suffer. Again, it's definitely a grainy picture, and the HDR it's there, but it's not really used to its greatest effect. But again, if you're a fan of this film, it's worth picking up. I picked this up for around, I think it was like $18 at Walmart, so it's a really good price for this disc, and you do get the regular Blu-ray and a 4K digital copy of it as well. So it's a solid release from Lionsgate. I recommend it if you enjoy the film. If you don't, again, it's a good action movie, but other than that, it's not the greatest superhero movie ever made. Punisher Warzone came out a few years after this, and I think that movie is just a mess. I really don't like that movie. It's a very nasty, forgettable film, whereas this, at least, you get some kind of character out of it. You get some pretty solid, really well-done action sequences, and some pretty memorable moments. This here is a solid release. I recommend it if you enjoy the film. If you don't, it's probably not worth it, but it is a big step up from the regular Blu-ray. Anyway, I'm Andrew Cavanaugh. Thank you for coming back to Cavanaugh's Corner, and we'll see you next time. Good night.